Yes, hello, it's Cousin Furphy here, and you may have seen Murphy's list of the top 100 albums of all time, and you may be aware that some of my suggestions didn't make the list because he said that there was no proof. Well, I've decided to launch my own show where we're going to go through some of the artists that Murphy felt weren't really worthy of being on the list. So yes, no shade on Murphy for not including them. I can understand his reasoning, but I have found some clips of a couple of the artists that I wanted to talk about. So yes, we're going to go through those today with the aid of my lovely assistant Sussex over there, who's going to be running the computer for me. So yes, that brings us to the show, and thank you. Now, if you did watch those, you will have already seen the clip we found of little Jimmy Ramsbottom, the man who invented hip-hop. If you didn't see that, then here it is again.
Orchestra. Cart horse. Makes you so angry at the division in the world where people like that are paid nothing and get almost no respect. Thalmadzzo. Charismatic. The origin of words. The origin of words. Phonos sound. Phonos sound. To write. Thaumaturge. And at night I would read stories. Ergos is work. To write. Orchestra. Ergos is work. Thaumaturge. Thaumaturge. The origin of words. The origin of words. Thalmadzzo. Charismatic. Cart horse. The origin of words. The origin of words.
Now, little Jimmy Ramsbottom was quite a wealthy young chap, but he was also very much a socialist and forward-thinking and all of this sort of thing. And he sort of had all of these ideas that he wanted to express over music, but unfortunately he had no musical talent. So he would just hire whatever musicians that he could find that were willing to do it, and usually just get his servants and things like that to do the percussion. So that's why it's all sort of stomping and hand clapping and things like that. And he would just sort of talk about his problems with the society at the time. He also had ADHD, which we wouldn't. Well, that's what people are saying now. They wouldn't have said that then because I don't know if there was such a diagnosis. But he would often get very distracted in his raps and sort of start going on about other things. But yes, he was certainly a legend in his time. But he's sort of been forgotten through history. He did release an album. It was on the Edison wax cylinders. You actually had to buy a big box that contained all of these cylinders, and there was 12 of them in total. I believe only 6 were then found years later, and then they were re-released on 78. And after that, there was no other re-release. So this is the only thing that still exists. I believe all copies have been destroyed, but this little bit of footage that was for an early idea he had for a music video or a music film, as it was at the time. And yeah, it's just him and a few of his chummies dancing about to his song, The Origin of Words. Simon and Simone Felcher were a Canadian couple. They were very much in love, and they decided to make an album that would sort of show this to the world. And so they got all their money together. It saved up for a long time. It took them about 3 years. And yes, they went into a recording studio and made this album, Love My Lovey-Dovey Love Love. They couldn't afford a band. They'd spent all their money on the studio time. So they managed to get their son to play bass. He was little Billy Felcher. And their next-door neighbour, Jimmy Spade, played the drums. Those two also sang backing vocals. Most of the album is unfortunately lost. One single does still exist, which is, of course, the big hit, I'll Always Take You Back. You see, this was the kind of Simon playing the character that would sort of say, or that he was not that good and not that nice, but Simone would always take him back. It's a lovely little song, and so here's a short clip of it that we can show you. And finally, this is the last one we're going to talk about in this episode. We have the Linda Esquire Memorial Band with Get That Trumpet Out of My Bottom. This was quite a sad story, actually. You see, there was this couple, Pablo and Linda Esquire. They were very, again, like the Felchers, they were very much in love. But Linda sadly died very, very young. And so, as a tribute to her, Pablo put this band together. So it was the Linda Esquire Memorial Band, and they made this very experimental jazz album for its time. And behind me, you can see the trumpet player. Pablo himself was quite an accomplished trumpet player, but the reason that the album was called "Get That Trumpet Out of My Bottom" this was because it was a regular, and it was rather risque to do this at the time. But it was quite they were quite sexually promiscuous. The Esquires, and this was a regular thing of theirs that he would shove a trumpet up her bottom and she would fart out a tune. And so obviously they couldn't do that in a recording studio, especially as Linda was no longer with us. And so they got the very accomplished trumpet player here, Fabio Cummings. Then there was also the rest of the band. Mandrake is quite interesting. He was their bass player, upright bass. He was a very strange chappie, always performed in a mask. No one ever saw his face. No one knew what his real name was until his untimely death in 1986. They actually took the mask off. And yes, that's finally what they found out what he looked like. His real name was actually Billy Smithington, and he was from Belgium. They also had the drummer, quite an amazing and accomplished jazz drummer, Sheldon Tubby Tubman. He was quite the player around town. Lots of young ladies would come calling on young Tubby. Yes, and he had quite the reputation, especially around London where he lived. And of course, we cannot forget the piano skills of Julian Williams. In this time it was still illegal to be gay, but he was very much a camp man and very sort of would go around without his shirt on and wearing, what you'd now call arseless chaps and things like that, and just very out there, and in a way that you probably wouldn't have gotten away with, but somehow he did. I think he had some friends in high places that were able to sort of get him out of trouble when needed. And so, yes, the Linda Esquire band, they sort of kept travelling around. They made several albums, but this was their best. Unfortunately, this is the only footage we have, and yes, their albums are quite hard to come by, but in certain circles they were very important and influential. And I forgot to mention that Pablo is the conductor. Yeah, he also wrote all the material. It does sound improvised, I will give you that. But no, he wrote all of this out note by note. It had to sound exactly like this. And actually, Fabio here used to complain rather a lot about doing 157 takes of everything. That was Pablo's lucky number, you see. So they had to do it 157 times. And yeah, the record label didn't like having to spend that much money either. But yeah, he always got his way. Anyway, that's all for this episode of Furphy's Favourites. If we can find footage of some of the other bands that I tried to get onto the list, maybe we'll do another episode of this. Until then, thank you for watching. I'm Cousin Furphy. Yes, hello, it's Sussex here. Just to remind you that anything Furphy says, we do sort of have citation needed. He has indeed found these clips online, or at least that's what he tells us, and so we have to kind of go with that. But yes, take it with a grain of salt. But we hope you've enjoyed the video, and yes, thank you for watching. Goodbye.